Let's talk about life. Throughout our early years, we are looked after. Then we reach adolescence and decide that we should be allowed more freedom than our younger siblings. We argue more with our parents about giving us some space. We reach adolescence and now think we know everything. Doesn't it seem strange how we thought we knew everything, but every day something happens that we didn't know about? More freedom, Mom, we say. I want my own room, even if it's in the basement. I want my own privacy, and of course my own phone. My parents allowed me to set up a bedroom in the basement and even installed an additional telephone there. I remember them saying, "You can have your own phone line when you get a job and pay for it yourself." Now I want a car. My friends had their own cars, but I had to drive my parents' old junk car. I had a brother who was 2 years older than me, and he was allowed to drive a new car or sometimes share my junk. It was almost humiliating. My parents always said the same thing. When you grow up and get a job, you can buy your own car. Until then, either drive an old Ford or no car at all. I couldn't wait to go out on my own. Freedom, no curfew. I could invite all my friends. Party all night long. Yeah, that would be life. Just a couple of years and I would be on my way, living a good life. No one would tell me what to do anymore. Finally, that time has come. My older brother went to college on a football scholarship. I also played football, but was not good enough for a scholarship. I didn't even want to go to college. I liked working with my hands, and I wanted to be on my own. For this, I needed a job. In high school, I studied auto mechanics to become a mechanic. I was top of my car repair class. I even got a job at one of the local auto repair shops while still in school. Whatever it is, I've found that if you're good at something and you love it, you can make a good living at it. By the time I was 21, I had opened my own garage and rented an apartment above it. I was on my way to a life of my own, where I could do what I chose. I'm getting a little ahead of the curve here. I need to tell you a little about my sex life and how it started. I was still living at home. I couldn't afford to live on my own. But I must say that the old wreck had a good back seat. There was a lot of sex going on in that back seat. The front seat had its share of butts on it too. Good times, good memories. I had both. At the same time, I was able to save some money and go out on my own. My parents were proud of me and my achievements. I was able to do this in just a few years. As I worked in the garage, I met a lot of women and girls. They came to fix their cars, and we were a full-service auto repair shop. We provided many girls with a full range of services. God, there were a lot of beautiful women there who came to fix their cars. We were 4 guys working in a garage. I was the new guy, also the youngest. So a lot of girls wanted to meet the new guy, me. In the beginning, I was quite clumsy. One of the older women told me to read some erotic stories on the internet and find out what women really want. She then told me to apply what I had learned. She really told me to look for the right stories. Type how to do it, because there was also a lot of nonsense. If I tried any of this with women, they would never want to date me again. I learned a lot about how to please a woman. I became quite a sought-after guy. I've never had to suffer from a lack of dates. By the time I finally got my apartment over the garage, I had guests several times a week. I could have had more of them, but after some time, I needed a rest. I wasn't a one-night stand. I didn't just sleep with them. I made love with everyone. In my mind, I loved every woman the moment I had sex with her. I forced myself to think so. I have always put a woman's needs first. By pleasing them, I pleased myself. According to most women, there weren't many guys like me around. I really fell in love with one girl. I have to tell you the story of how we met and all the problems that arose from it. When I was 20 years old, I went to visit my brother at college. I went up to his room and the door was open. We just talked when he needed to go to the toilet. I stood with my back to the door and suddenly a pair of arms wrapped around me, and I felt a pair of breasts pressing into my back. Then the hand slid down. "Hey, honey, can I have this?" said a woman's voice as she grabbed me. When I turned around, I saw the most beautiful girl I had ever laid eyes on. She was a short blonde with what seemed like perfect curves. "Honey, you can have me anytime you want. All you have to do is tell me when," I replied. "Oh God, you're not Dan. I'm so embarrassed. God, what must you think about me? I'm so sorry." At that moment, Dan came out of the bathroom. "What happened, honey? Have you met my little brother David?" "I thought it was you, Dan. You look so much alike from behind." "Sorry, David, I feel so stupid." "Calm down," I started to say, but I didn't even know her name. "This is Lisa. My name is Lisa." "Well, Lisa, you're the most beautiful girl I've ever met. You can hug me anytime. In fact, why don't you just marry me and let me take you away from this boring college life?" I said. "Wait a minute, David. This is my girlfriend. Stop making advances toward her." He laughed. "Lisa, if you ever get tired of my big brother, then just come find me," I replied. I didn't realize it then, but after that day I constantly compared all my female friends to Lisa. I enjoyed all my dates, but none of them compared to my brother's girlfriend, soon to be his wife. They, Dan and Lisa, got married about a year later. Dan received a degree in business management and got a job at one of the large factories in our area. He started as a shift supervisor and after a couple of years moved into the offices. They already had one child, a beautiful little girl they named Dee Dee. She is almost 3 years old now. At all family events, I always found myself looking at Lisa. I always had a different girl for any special event. I most often dated a woman named Nina. We had a lot of common interests, and sex with her was great. We often went with Dan and Lisa and Linda and Mark. Linda was Lisa's best friend. They said that they had been best friends since school and had no secrets from each other. Of course, being best friends made Mark and Dan good friends too. Linda and Mark had 2 children, 2 little girls, aged 4 and 3. In fact, they were a year and a half apart. Linda looked completely different from Lisa, but she was also beautiful in her own way. She was a brunette with shoulder-length hair, brown eyes, and beautiful dimples. She was larger than Lisa, but not too curvy. She had beautiful big breasts and a big butt. I often wondered what she would be like in bed. It was just second nature to me. I was a lonely young man with raging hormones and loved sex. I often joked with Lisa and Linda about getting in their pants. In fact, we joked about everything. I had to make jokes to hide how I really felt towards my brother's wife. Every time I hugged her, I thought about how lucky my brother was. I have never kissed her on the lips. I didn't want to take the risk of revealing my feelings. For both couples, I was a jack of all trades. Whenever something needed to be fixed or assembled, they always turned to me. I've always tried to be a good guy, a good Samaritan. My best sexual adventures always happened after I left these ladies' houses. I guess I had to take out my sexual impulses on someone. Either Nina or one of my other friends was getting really good sex. Dan, as I mentioned, worked in an office and Mark was a truck driver, so when something needed fixing, they called David. It's me. I had a good life, but it also hurt not having the woman I loved. If it had been anyone other than my brother, I would have fought for Lisa. I really cared for her that much. Maybe the fact that I couldn't have her was part of the desire. We all want what we can't have. Although I am far from a saint and could have contacted Linda for one love encounter, the cost was too high. I would have lost my friendship with both Lisa and Mark. My brother would probably be angry with me too. Mark really wasn't one of my favorite people. He was loud and sometimes overly intrusive. I could only tolerate it for a certain time and then I had to leave. So, as you can see, my problem is not lack of sex. The problem was making love to the woman I really loved. I loved going to Dan and Lisa's pool party. Yes, they had a pool, and I often saw Lisa and Linda in their 2-piece swimsuits. It was very difficult not to stare at them. I usually had to bring a woman with me so that I could cut off a piece when necessary. Oh, sorry. For those who don't understand my language, cutting a piece means having sex or getting laid. Anyway, at one of the pool parties, I went into the kitchen to get something and accidentally overheard Lisa talking to my friend Nina outside the kitchen window. "Are you and David serious about each other?" asked Lisa. "We're really good friends, but I don't think we have a future," Nina replied. "Why not? He seems to prefer you over most of his dates. I know he cares about you. He even told me so. The key words here are cares about, because he loves someone else. I know he loves me very much, and we get along well together. That's why I always go with him when he invites me. I'm missing something here. Who does he love? God, girl, you're not just bait. You're a beautiful woman with a personality to match your beauty. Any man would be happy to be with you, Lisa said. Lisa, thank you. Don't ever tell David what I'm about to tell you. He's always been in love with you. He tries to hide it, but I see through it when he's around you. He's lucky Dan is David's brother. Otherwise, there could be a fight for you. As for me, I really care about David. Knowing that he doesn't love me is fine with me. I'm with him for the sex, too. He's the kindest and sexiest man I've ever known. I know. When we have sex, I know that throughout the sexual acts he loves me, but after we're done, we both go back to the real world. Nina, you mean he loves me like a sister, right? Stop being so naive, Lisa. He loves you as a woman and compares his feelings for you with all other women. Perhaps that is why he will never marry, unless you have a twin sister. God, Nina, I knew I liked him, but I never knew how much. I love him too, but he's my husband's brother. Thank you for telling me. I promise I'll never mention it to him. Maybe I should flirt with him less too. Sometimes we get carried away. I hope you find your Mr. Right too, Nina. You truly are an exceptional girl. David would have to be blind not to see that in you. He sees it in me, and I see it in him. We're just really good friends. I'm dating others too, but I won't talk about that right now, Nina replied. I walked out the door and saw Lisa and Nina standing there. I smiled. I wanted to make things lighter after what I heard. How are my two favorite women doing? God, what bodies you have. Nina, do you want to do it in the pool? They both hit me and reminded me that there were children nearby. We all laughed. I walked up and jumped into the water. I spoke with Nina many times, and we were happy with our current relationship. What she didn't tell Lisa was that she had a boyfriend. It was getting serious, but we just had a connection between us. This would continue until one of us got married. We both agreed that then it would end. Nina and I went to her house after the party and made love. She was right when she talked about love. I have always made love to my women. Nina was just as affectionate in response to my caresses during our love act. If I hadn't felt the way I felt for a certain woman I couldn't have, I probably would have committed my life to Nina. She will always remain my longtime friend. Mark, Dan, and I were on the bowling team. We'd go bowling and then go to the Elks or Mustangs and have a couple of beers. This week wasn't so different from the others, except that after bowling, Mark suggested going to a new gentleman's club that had opened on the other side of town. I had no problem with this, knowing that in these clubs there were almost naked dancers and in some places it was allowed to grope the girls a little. We walked in and a dancer named Melinda offered us a private dance of sorts. She was wearing a drawstring bare eye and almost transparent panties. We all got excited. Melinda saw our condition and offered the pleasure for $50 each. I've never paid for sex in my life. Mark and Dan made fun of me, saying how greedy I was. They both handed Melinda $50 and laughed at me, so I went with the flow and gave her 50 of mine. We all went to another room that was used for such purposes. I looked at Dan and Mark and asked them how they could do this to their wives. I really didn't understand what was happening to them. Both had wives who were real beauties. Nevertheless, here they were having sex for money. I thought about Lisa, and it kind of made me angry that my own brother would do this to her. Dan looked at me. Hey, brother, it's not cheating. No one will get hurt. Lisa will never know. Yeah, relax a little. You sleep with a lot of different women. Dan and I are married, so it's nice to get a little weird sometimes, Mark replied. Okay, guys, just if I ever get married, I hope my wife doesn't think like that, I said. This lasted about 3 minutes. Melinda made good money today. Do not misunderstand me. I'm not greedy. I just don't understand why you should pay for this. Hell, I would invite Melinda and spend $300 on her and have sex with her all night. I would make love to her, but giving her $50 to do it seemed stupid. All this happened on Friday evening. On Saturday, I had to work and repair several cars. It probably took me 2 hours to get back the money I gave Melinda for the pleasure. It just seemed so stupid. As for Dan and Mark, They could have gone home and gotten a lot better. I know I would if I were married to one of their wives, especially Lisa. On Sunday morning, Lisa called me. She asked if I wanted to come over for lunch and maybe swim in the pool. I can't pass up a free lunch and the chance to see my favorite girl in a swimsuit, I said. I still tried to act and talk the same way as before. She would be surprised if I behaved differently. She knew how I felt about her and tried to behave the same way. I arrived at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and went to the backyard where there was a pool. There was an 8-foot privacy fence around it to prevent people from seeing into the pool. I opened the gate and saw Lisa bending down to pick up a towel from the deck. I almost got excited looking at her. She turned around and looked at me. I knew I had to say something. "What I wouldn't give to have a piece of that ass," I smiled. "What would you give to have a piece of my ass, David?" she asked. "Everything I have," I replied. "Sold, now pay, and it's all yours for today," she replied. She wasn't joking. I felt tension. Something was wrong. "What happened, Lisa? Where are Dan and Dee?" I asked, looking into her face. "Your mother has them for a couple of hours. I called you to talk about something very personal. Dan doesn't even know you're here. Dan cheated on me and I'm going to get revenge," she told me. "I know everything that happened on Friday night. You're not married, so it's up to you. I'm going to take revenge. You paid $50 for this. Will you give me $500 to sleep with me?" I was wondering how she knows this. "You can't be serious, Lisa. Dan won't do that again. You're definitely not planning on getting revenge, right?" "David, I've been thinking a lot. I'm completely confused. I've never had sex with another man, only Dan. Now I'm not enough for him. Sorry, I need revenge. I need to even the score. I'm worth $500, or you'll go looking for someone else's." "Oh my God, Lisa, think about it. Your marriage, your family, everything will be at risk. Dan is the one who put our lives in danger. I'm just going to get revenge. Am I worth $500 to you, or should I go and find someone else to do it? I don't understand money. You cost me so much more than that. I just don't understand. I'm not going to give myself to someone. I'm going to sell myself one time. In my mind, it's different. Not just give myself like Dan did. Do you want me, or should I go to someone else?" I almost started to cry. The woman I loved, my brother's wife, was going to sell herself for revenge. Damn it, my brother. I told him not to do this. I couldn't let her go to another man, not the woman I love. "Lisa, you know I've always loved you. I'll give you money to save your marriage, but I won't just sleep with you. I need to make love to you. I've always wanted to make love to you. Just so you know, David, this will only be this one time. If Dan cheats on me again, I will divorce him. I'm ready now, David. Pay me, then take me." "Lisa, I only have $200 with me. Is my credit good for the rest?" We both laughed. It wasn't funny, but it calmed the situation. "Your credit is good for me. Let's go into the pool and start from there, if you don't mind." I took off my shorts and t-shirt. Underneath were swim briefs. Lisa slid into the water after me. I couldn't believe this was happening. I was going to make love to the woman of my dreams, my brother's wife. After we took a dip in the water, she came up to me and we kissed. We actually kissed. It was the first time since I met her that we kissed like that. Lips parted slightly, our lips touching lightly at first, then a little harder until we were kissing like two lovers needing each other. We splashed water on each other. I pulled her towards me and kissed her again. "I want you so much. David, just take me however you want." I lifted her body and sat her on the edge of the pool. God, she was so beautiful. We started having sex. "Nina was right, David. She told me that you are the best, and as far as I know, you are. Your brother is good, but there is something special about the way you make love to me," she said, kissing me. "I love you, Lisa. I have always loved you and always will. My brother is a fool for cheating on such a wonderful woman. I know this will only happen once, so I want to give you everything I can." Then she got off me, got dressed, and ran into the house. I put on my swim trunks and jumped into the pool to cool down. Lisa came out a few minutes later in a different swimsuit. She jumped into the pool to wash herself off as well. I asked her how she found out about Friday night, but she didn't answer. She told me to ask Linda the next time I saw her. She even knew that I was against it, but I followed the lead of the other guys. She also knew that I told them that they should go home to their wives. She knew everything. David, thank you. I would have gone looking for someone to cheat on, but I wanted you. You see, I have strong feelings for you too, and not just because you are my brother-in-law. I just don't follow those feelings. Because I really love your brother, and he is my husband. I'm glad that we ended up together this one time. I will always cherish this memory, but it should not and will not be repeated. I think I have taken revenge, and will tell Dan that next time I'll leave it. You're not going to tell him about us, are you? No, not about us. But I have to let him know what the consequences of cheating are. I better go. I wish I could stay and make love to you again. But then I'll never want to leave you. I really love you, Lisa. I just needed to tell you. We exchanged another sensual kiss, and I walked away to my garage and apartment. Dan called me on Monday evening and said he needed to see me as soon as possible. I headed to the Losi Club and ordered a beer. Dan had 2 double shots of whiskey and a beer in front of him. I was worried that he found out about me and Lisa. David, he said, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I had the damn fun and Lisa found out. Or at least, I think she might have found out, I'm not sure. What exactly did she say, Dan? Well, she found that stupid card that girl gave us. You know, her business card that says she throws parties and stuff. She gave us each one. Lisa found it in my shirt pocket. I told her that we were there, drank a couple of beers, and the girl gave us her cards. She looked at me like she didn't believe me and said, Dan, if I find out you cheated on me, I'll find some guy and give it to him. I'll get revenge. I might even make a couple $100 for this. I don't know what to do, David. I love her so much. It was so stupid. Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she believed you. Today after work, I came home and there were $200 on the coffee table. I walked into the kitchen where she was standing as beautiful as ever, and she said, Dan, I forgot to mention, but if you cheat on me a second time, I will divorce you. Do you think she knows, David? Dan, I think she's playing on your feelings. Treat her like gold. Make love to her every day or whenever you can. Show her that you love her. I think she'll love the added attention. But most importantly, don't cheat on her. She may have left the money to let you know she's serious. Don't give her any reason to doubt you. Thanks, David. I think you might be right. I checked with the neighbors, and Lisa didn't even leave the house today, and there weren't any strangers' cars in the driveway. From now on, I'll be Mr. Dad and Mr. Lover all in one. I'll never make that mistake again. Damn, every guy needs a brother like you, even if you're younger. He smiled. God, how I wish he hadn't said that last sentence. Even though I loved Lisa, I wasn't proud of what I did. He is my brother after all, but I may have saved his marriage. On Wednesday, close to closing, I was under the car, fixing the muffler. I looked to the side and saw a pair of sexy legs. I immediately knew who they belonged to. Hey, Linda, nice legs. Do they go all the way to your butt? I laughed. Come out from under your hiding place and find out. She laughed too. I rolled out from under the car and found myself looking up Linda's skirt. Uh-huh, just as I thought, I said. How can I help you, beauty? Make love to me like you did to Lisa. What? You're kidding. What did Lisa tell you? That's it. We're best friends and we tell each other everything. Don't worry. Your secret is safe with me. I just want to get back at Mark for being such a jerk. We have 2 kids and he goes around and has just anyone. I'm his love, David, I really do, but I won't let him do this to me. I know you love Lisa. That's not news. I want you to make love to me. What it costs is a buy one promotion. Get the second one free. You paid for Lisa, so you get me free. She smiled. Honestly, Linda, I've always wanted to get in your pants. The only reason I never tried was because of your friendship with Dan and Lisa. I'd love to make love to you as soon as I'm done with the silencer. This will take about 20 minutes, and then I'll need to wash myself. You can come up to my apartment. I'll be there in a while if you don't mind. Try not to look at how dirty I am. I don't have a woman to force me out. Linda went up to my apartment. When I got upstairs, she had already tidied up the place. While I was taking a shower, she changed the sheets. She laughed at how I kept my apartment. She took a couple of beers out of the fridge and gave me one as I came out of the shower. I only had a towel wrapped around me. Linda stripped down to her bra and panties and sat down on the bed, right in the middle. I put our beers down and asked her to lie down. I threw off the towel and lay down next to her on my side. David, before we get started, I have to tell you that unlike Lisa, I've been with several guys other than Mark. I haven't been with anyone while Mark and I have been married. He's not very good in bed. He just attacks me, does his business, and leaves. Will you do more than that for me? Linda, I'm going to make love to every inch of you. I'm here to please you. If there's anything you want, just ask. I leaned over and kissed her on the lips. I went down to her neck and then back to her lips. She was a hot, sensual woman. She kissed back as passionately as she was kissed. We had sex several times. All this time she screamed about how good it was. We rested for a few minutes and drank more beer. After resting, we had sex again. After we finished, she took a shower and thanked me. I couldn't believe such a nice woman was thanking me for sex. Mark was one dumbass for not caring for his wife properly. She was one beautiful, lusty woman. Dan and Mark's mistake resulted in some of the best sex I've ever had. Two completely different women, two completely different sexes, but both great. We had a normal bowling night on Friday. Women and children came to the bowling center that evening. After bowling, we all went out for pizza. Lisa and Linda, as usual, joked and smiled at me and behaved completely normally. It was hard for me. Every time I saw any of them, I remembered the time I spent with each of them. I wanted to ask Lisa why she told Linda, but I never got around to it. The girls must have thought about me because they brought Nina. It wasn't so awkward being around her. Plus, I knew the evening would end with a lovemaking session. The next week, everything seemed almost back to normal. I didn't check in with Dan and Lisa as often because the situation still made me feel uncomfortable. One evening, Dan came over to my place after the garage closed, and we went out for a couple of beers. He said everything was great at home. He and Lisa began making love more often, and she never mentioned cheating or divorce again. He said he had found his loving wife again, and the marriage remained intact. He would never take that risk again. I was happy for him, but I knew that I would suffer because of Lisa. The following Friday, Dan, Mark, and I went bowling again. The girls didn't show up, so we decided to go out for a couple of beers. Mark drove the car and took us to the gentlemen's club again. Dan and I didn't want to say anything, so as not to raise unnecessary questions. After all, we could have a couple of beers and then head home. Melinda came to our table near the stage and started dancing. She was a good dancer. When she asked if we wanted a private dance, Dan quickly replied, "No, thank you," I said. "Not for me today, maybe another time." Mark called her and asked how much sex would cost. She said it was $100 and he had to use a condom. He jumped up and told us that he would be back soon. I couldn't believe he did it again, even though he caught Linda. Maybe she didn't tell him. I wonder why. The bartender brought us each another beer and said it was on the house while we waited. We looked at the other dancer until Mark returned, grinning from ear to ear. I couldn't believe he did it again, considering Linda caught him. Perhaps she never told him. I was wondering why. Mark drove Dan home and I left my car there, so I went out too. We said goodbye to Mark and Dan invited me for a beer. I went to have one beer with him. I assumed that Lisa had already gone to bed. Dan and I were sitting in the living room talking when Lisa walked into the room. She was wearing a baby pajama set with an almost see-through robe included. She looked great. Dan said, "Hey, honey, we went to a gentleman's club and had a few beers. Mark was driving and he pulled in." "Have you been a good boy, dear?" she asked. "I'm always good, honey. Ask my little brother, he'll tell you. I knew who I was coming back to, so watching the dancers made me a little frisky for you." I intervened. "He won't lie to you, Lisa. I'd better go home. I don't think I want to watch you make love." The last thing I wanted was to watch another man take Lisa, even if it was her husband and my brother. I headed home. I could use a good night's sleep after all the beer I've drunk. Besides, I had to get up early and work in the garage. I usually stayed open until noon on Saturdays, unless someone made an appointment. Around noon on Saturday, the phone rang. It was Linda. "David, I need to see you. Will you be home tonight?" Mark is away on a business trip and won't be back until Monday. My mother asked to take the kids for the night, so I'm alone. I enjoyed having sex with her the last time, but I thought it was a one-time thing. I invited her. I wondered what she would say to Mark. I didn't want to be the one to come between their marriage. I cleaned up and tidied up the house a little and changed the clean linen on the bed. I went to the store and bought a few bottles of beer and a couple of cocktails for Linda. I knew she liked them. When she arrived, I handed her a cocktail. She was wearing shorts and a nice blouse. I asked her, "Linda, why are you here? I thought our lovemaking was a one-time thing. It was meant to be. You made love to me like no other. I never confronted Mark about his cheating because I wanted to see if he would do it again. I decided to ask you to make love to me one more time before facing Mark. I love making love to you, Linda. You are a special friend to me, and I don't want to ruin our friendship or your marriage. I also need you to tell me how you find out what's going on at the gentlemen's club. I think you should also tell Mark when you run into him." She told me how she got the information and asked for another cocktail. Then we headed to the bedroom. She smiled when she saw the clean laundry. She truly has been a special friend to me, a very special friend since our last time together. I have had 3 special women in my life. 2 were married, and the 3rd had a boyfriend different from me. I wondered where I would be in 10 years. Linda stripped down to her bra and panties and climbed onto the bed. She looked damn sexy. I climbed onto the bed with her, and we essentially repeated what happened the last time. The only new thing we did was she made me feel good. She was great at it. Couldn't believe Mark was paying for this when his wife was twice as good. Linda spent the night, and we made love again in the morning before she left. The last thing she told me before she left was that she loved her husband and would never have cheated on him if he hadn't cheated first. The following Wednesday, Mark called me. I could count on one hand the number of times Mark called me, so this call really bothered me. "David, can you meet me at the Moose Club tonight? There's something I need to talk to you about. It's very important and very personal. Can you meet me around 7? Damn it. What could he want to discuss with me? Importantly and personally, he sounded concerned, but not really angry. I agreed to meet him. I wasn't afraid of him, but I hoped it wouldn't be confrontational. I arrived about 5 minutes late and found Mark alone in a remote booth, away from everyone. "Hi, David. Thanks for coming. Please sit down. I need to discuss something with you." "Of course, Mark. No problem. You seem nervous? What are we talking about?" "Linda knows I cheated on her both times at the club." I interrupted Mark. "What does this have to do with me? I'm not even married." "Please, David, I'll get to that. I have to tell you the rest first. She told me that the new bartender at the club is also the owner. He's her cousin from Kentucky. He owns 3 clubs, 2 in Ohio and 1 in Kentucky. I thought I knew him, but I didn't recognize him. He was at our wedding many years ago. Linda called the club after she found Melinda's business card in my shirt pocket. Then she went to the club and saw her cousin. He told her that he saw the 3 of us and what we did. He promised to let her know if we came back, but only if we did something sexual. Well, you know, I had sex with this stupid available girl. We stopped for a couple of minutes and ordered a couple more beers." Mark continued. "When I returned from my business trip on Monday, Linda confronted me with the facts so that I could not deny. We both knew it was true. Linda asked for a divorce. I cried like a little child. I love her. She is my life. I can't live without her." He started crying at the table. I really felt sorry for him. This was not arrogant Mark. He was a man afraid of losing his family. "What can I do, Mark? Linda won't listen to me. I can't even lie to you if she knows the truth. I want you to sleep with Linda, Mark." "What? Are you crazy? Where did you get that idea? Me and Linda?" Like I said, Linda asked for a divorce. I promised her I would never do it again if she would just stay with me. I begged her to reconsider. I asked her, "What about our family?" She said I should have thought about them while I had Melinda. I told her, "Please don't ruin our marriage. We can get through this. I will do anything to keep us together." She told me that she was going to take revenge to even the score with me. It was the only way to save our marriage. That way, we will be even. She even told me that I can choose the guy. It's a one-time thing. I chose you because you're lonely, and Linda thinks you're a good guy. God, Mark, are you sure you want this? Linda is a beautiful woman. Are you sure about this? Who else should I choose, David? I know Dan won't do it, and I don't want anyone to know. You're my only hope to save my marriage. I'm a fool, David. Cheating on a woman like Linda? What was I thinking? Will you do this for me? I agreed to do this. There were several difficulties. Mark had to be present because she wanted him to cuckold. Mark also told me that he didn't know how to love, so I shouldn't be too good. I had a plan that I thought might work. We agreed on Saturday evening. He should have told Linda that it would be me. I wanted Mark to make sure Linda agreed. I came to their house on Saturday. Mark met me, if you can call it a meeting. The guy was really depressed. I could tell he was really suffering. Everything will be fine, Mark. Just do as I say and everything will be fine. Mark looked at me strangely. He didn't comment on my previous words as we walked into the bedroom. Linda was sitting on the bed in a robe. I didn't know if she was wearing anything underneath it. She greeted me politely, but I could see that she was nervous too. Having sex in front of your spouse is not an everyday occurrence. Mark told you that this would be a one-time thing for him cheating on me. It's the only way to even the scores. I know I would have held it against him our whole lives otherwise. I should have done the same thing he did, only I told you I'm not crying. She tried to smile to relieve the tension. Mark was wearing a t-shirt and shorts. He was dressed the same as me. He sat down on the chair next to the bed as Linda took off her robe. She was naked under the robe. She looked radiant as she sat in the middle of their huge bed. I looked at Mark, who had tears in his eyes. He suffered. I asked Linda to lie down while I lay down on the bed. I took off my shirt and shorts, but kept my boxers on. I looked at her beautiful breasts waiting to be kissed. I started kissing one of her breasts. I looked at Mark and told him to come to the bed and work on her other breast. He looked dazed, but stood up and lay down on the bed. Linda looked at me, but didn't say anything. She had two men working on her breasts. Mark, kiss your wife like you did when you first met her. It's not about you now. It's about making your wife happy. He kissed her again and again. I kept touching her breasts. I told Mark to kiss her breasts again, which he did. He began to do this, and Linda could be seen sighing. I became the instructor, and Mark was the student. When he did what I told him, "Okay, Mark, she's yours now. Right now, she'd probably prefer the man she loves over a stranger or even a friend. Just remember, Mark, it's what you can do for Linda, not what you can do for yourself. In love, always put Linda first, and you will be rewarded tenfold." They started having sex. They both jumped up and went to the shower. My mission was completed. I think I helped save another marriage. I left while they were in the shower. They didn't need my help anymore. A couple of days later, I was working in the garage when I received a delivery of baked goods and chocolate. The card said, "Thank you for everything." Signed, "From your two best friends, Mark and Linda." Damn, that made me feel good. I called Nina, and we went out on a date. We were still just sex friends. For some reason, we both couldn't cross that line. I think she didn't want to be second in my thoughts. I couldn't blame her. She deserved better. As time went on, I didn't see Lisa or Linda as often. At a bowling alley about 2 months later, I received a surprise. Dan had something he wanted to tell me. "David, you'll be an uncle in about 7 months." It goes without saying that Lisa was pregnant. Mark chimed in and smiled. "Damn, you guys ruined my surprise. Linda is pregnant with our third child. She's about 2 months along, too. I think it was our all-night sex marathon she and I had." He looked at me and smiled. Even Dan didn't know about it. It was a secret between Mark, Linda, and me. Of course, I'm sure Linda told Lisa because they didn't keep secrets from each other. I distanced myself even more from women. There was a good chance that one or both of the children could be mine. The timing couldn't have come at a better time. I wondered if I would ever know. At the next holiday, we were all at my mother's. She also invited Mark and Linda. 2 pregnant but beautiful women stood there, beaming with happiness. They both hugged and kissed me on the cheek. I felt good, but somewhat sad. The woman I loved and the woman I could love. Both are happily married with a child, maybe even my child. I should have left the party early. I was too close to these two women. There is always a price to pay for betrayal. I paid the price for these two women. Life went on quite normally. Lisa gave birth first. She gave birth to a handsome boy with blonde hair. Since Dan and I were so similar, no one would know for sure, not even Lisa. Dan was so happy. His son was born, and he smiled at the baby. They named him Derek. They wanted to continue the tradition of names starting with D. Now they had Dee, their daughter, Derek, their son, and Dan, their father. Mark and Linda also had a son. He was born a week after that. He had dark hair and looked like Linda. Mark was a happy dad. He came up to me when we were alone and thanked me for showing him how to love his wife. He said if it weren't for me, they would have divorced. Instead, they had a son, whom they named David, in my honor. I later learned that calling him David was Mark's idea. He's not such a bad guy after all. Everything seemed pretty normal. The children were already several months old and everyone seemed quite happy. I felt a little lonely. I didn't visit Lisa or Linda that often. It was a little awkward every time I saw them. I thought I'd call Nina and maybe we'll go somewhere. She answered the call but said she couldn't talk right now. She'll call me back later. I turned on the old TV and was watching Sports Center when she called back. David, I have something to do with you. Bill, my boyfriend, proposed to me. I said yes. He knows that you and I were good friends and asked about you. I told him that I would be faithful to him. David, we always knew this day would come. I will miss you, and I will always remember the good times. Nina, I wish you and Bill all the best. You deserve to have someone to share your life with. You will always be a special memory in my life. Good luck to you and Bill. I hung up before she could say anything else. I knew it would be better this way. If only I wasn't obsessed with Lisa. Nina deserves someone special. She will be a special woman in my memories. I spent the next couple of days trying to get back to normal. I hired a young man to help in the garage. I spent too much time at work. I needed to get out more often, perhaps to find that special one. The phone rang, and I was in for the shock of my life. It was my father. David, your brother Dan was in a motorcycle accident. We're all in the hospital. The doctors don't think he'll survive. He wants to talk to you. Please hurry. I'm on my way, Dad. I didn't even say goodbye. I told Jim, my new employee, to take care of business. I didn't know when I'd be back. I jumped into my pickup truck and almost flew to the hospital. I burst inside and everyone was sitting in the waiting room. Lisa was crying. I took her in my arms and hugged her. Mom was crying too, and Dad was holding her. The doctor came out and said Dan was asking for me. I walked in and saw the beaten body of my older brother. David, I know I won't survive. I need you to look after my family. I know you love Lisa almost as much as I do. I know that's why you never got married. I need so that you promise me that you will take care of her. I cannot leave this world knowing that she will be alone. Promise me, David. Promise that you will take care of Lisa and my children. I cried. I couldn't control it. Tears streamed down my face. Lisa entered the room and saw me crying. She was still crying herself when she took Dan's hand and pressed it to her cheek. Well, David, will you take care of my Lisa and my children? Lisa looked at me. Yes, Dan, I promise to take care of Lisa and the children. I will do everything I can to help them. I will make sure that when your children grow up, they know what a wonderful father they had. Dan looked at the crying Lisa. Honey, my little brother loves you. I don't know if you knew about it. I want you to look after him. He really needs a good woman, and you are the best. These were Dan's last words before he left. Lisa and I sat and cried. Mom and Dad came in and cried too. I lost a brother who was probably my best friend. We were all in a fog in the following days. We've all been involved in funeral arrangements and dealing with all the legal needs that come with a death. The funeral was heartbreaking. All our friends and family expressed their condolences. I sat with Lisa during all the ceremonies. I wasn't going to leave her alone. If I wasn't there, Linda was there to hold her hand. They truly were best friends. In the weeks and months following my brother's death, I visited Lisa every evening to check on how she was doing. Other than the occasional light kiss and hug, there were no sexual thoughts. We knew we would end up together. Now, we both needed time to heal. Not a day went by without me thinking about my brother or helping his wife. His little boy was a few months old. He was so much like both of us. Dee, his little girl, came up to me every day and hugged me. She was so sweet, but without a father. She didn't know what exactly happened, except that her dad was gone forever. After all, she just turned 4 years old. About 6 months after Dan died, Mom and Dad and Lisa's parents came to Lisa's house. I was outside playing with Dee while Lisa cooked us something for dinner. The baby was resting. Lisa raised her head and saw her parents. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" Lisa turned around and saw my parents. "What's going on? Is someone hurt or sick?" she asked. My mother called me into the house. Mom spoke first. "David, Lisa, we came to tell you that the time of mourning has passed. We know that you love each other. We will always miss Dan, but you two need to move on with your lives." Lisa's father spoke next. "Here are 2 tickets to Las Vegas. You need to go there and get married. We booked you the best hotel we could afford. We are paying for your honeymoon." Lisa's mom spoke next. "Honey, we love you, and we loved Dan. We love David, too. We'll look after the kids while you're on vacation. When you get back, we expect you to be husband and wife." My dad looked at us. "David, marry her and give her children a father. I know you love them as much as we do. Heck, they won't even have to change their last names. We all came here together so you both know that we support you. Now, son, make the right choice." There were tears in my eyes and Lisa was crying. I wasn't sure how to react. I approached Lisa and asked her to sit on the sofa. I knelt down on one knee and said, "Lisa, will you marry me? I may not be the best match in the world, but I really love you, and I also love children. Will you marry me?" All I could hear was crying. Lisa, her mother, and my mother were all crying. Finally, Lisa spoke. "I loved your brother with all my heart. Now he's gone, and I promised him to take care of you. You promised him to take care of me. The easiest way to do that is to be husband and wife. Yes, David, I will marry you and love you. You the way I loved your brother." Now I was crying. My dream has come true. I was going to marry the love of my life, but I lost my brother because of it. I hugged Lisa and just held her. Lisa and I went to Las Vegas. We were supposed to be there for a week. We both needed this trip to get to know each other again. We checked into our hotel and went to eat. Then we went to get our marriage license. We were going to get married the next day. We went back to our room and talked for a while. We talked about Dan, our past, and children. "David, I spoke to Linda, and I know you were wondering who little David's father was. Linda secretly took a test, unknown to Mark. Mark is David's biological father. I thought you'd be interested in finding out. I've never taken a test. For Derek. I don't see the point. He'll be your son now, no matter who fathered the baby. Since you and Dan were brothers, a lot of the genes will be the same. What do you think?" "That's okay with me. If he ever needs a body part or blood, I'll be the next relative to see him get it. I love this baby and will treat him like my own. There's no need for anyone else to know. I've thought about adoption, but there's no reason for it. They already have my last name and you have insurance and social security from Dan for them until they become independent. The only thing left to discuss is whether you're ready to make love to me. David, tomorrow you will be my lawful husband. Of course I want to make love to you. I have always wanted this. What about tonight? We won't be married until tomorrow. What will you give me to get in my pants tonight?" she asked. "Everything I have," I said. "Sold. I'm all yours tonight. Do whatever you want with me. I love you, David. I really do." We kissed and began our first night of love. Tomorrow we will be husband and wife. Love with someone you truly love is the best. It was 3 o'clock in the morning before we fell asleep. At about 9 the next morning, we were sitting at breakfast when Linda and Mark came into the room. "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" Lisa asked. Hey, girlfriend, you didn't think I'd miss your wedding in Las Vegas. You're not married yet, are you? Linda asked. No, we're going straight after breakfast. Sit down and join us, and then you two can be our witnesses, Lisa replied. After breakfast, we went to get dressed in wedding clothes. Lisa looked beautiful in her blue dress. Of course, she looked good, even without clothes. I put on a jacket, but without a tie. Lisa said this was normal for her. From that moment on, she was the only woman I wanted to please. While we were getting ready, Linda went to book them a room. When checking in, she asked the front desk if the honey room was available. After checking, the receptionist said he would be available that evening. Linda said she wanted it for her best friend, who was getting married in a few hours. She was willing to pay any difference in price. She mentioned that we would need a room for 5 extra days. She just wanted to do something special for her best friend. Changes were made, and when we left our room, we would be upgraded to the honey room at no extra cost. 4 of us went to one of the wedding chapels. In less than half an hour, we became husband and wife. I felt different, good, different. Now I was a husband and father. I will have responsibilities not only to myself. I also felt needed, wanted, and loved. It's all thanks to one precious woman, Lisa. After the short ceremony, we went out to do some gambling and then decided to watch a magic show. Linda talked to Lisa about Las Vegas. Remember when we were teenagers, we talked about going to Las Vegas together. That's not exactly what we planned, is it? Lisa replied, No, this is better, much better. We don't need to look for some men to pick us up. We brought them with us, and we have men we love. You're right, Lisa. This is probably much better, Linda replied. After our afternoon outing, we all headed back to the hotel. We got into the elevator, and Linda pressed the button to the honey room. We told her that she had pressed the wrong floor. She walked out of the elevator, and we followed her. At the end of the corridor, there was a sign on the door. Welcome, David and Lisa. Congratulations on your recent wedding. We hope your stay with us will be memorable. Signature, Administration. We walked in, and there was a jacuzzi and a heart-shaped bed. All our things were moved here. We thanked Linda and Mark and invited them to sit in the hot tub with us that evening. Lisa looked at Mark and said, "Put on your swimsuit, Mark." We all laughed. We had a wonderful honeymoon and were able to enjoy Linda and Mark's friendship. Now it was time to return home and set up housekeeping. I was a little nervous, but soon relaxed when I saw the sign on the porch. Welcome home, Mom and Dad. We hope you had a good holiday. Love, Dee and Derek. Beneath it was another note. Welcome home, children. We wish you all the best that family life has to offer. With love, both sets of moms and dads. Everyone came out onto the porch to meet us. We were blessed to have 2 sets of wonderful and understanding parents. After everyone left, Dee came up to me. Dad, are you my and Derek's dad, or is our dad dead? Wow, I should have said that right. This came from the mouth of a 4-year-old. Well, honey, both answers are correct. Your dad is gone and is now in heaven, watching over you. I'm your dad here on earth. It's my job to take care of you and Derek, along with your mom, so that you get everything that you need. What do you need? She simply said, "Thank you, Daddy." Then she got up and left. In the evening, after putting Derek to bed, Lisa went into Dee's room to wish her good night and tuck her in. She looked into her room and saw Dee praying. Only this time, everything was different. My dad, who is in heaven, just like you are today. Forgive me for everything I did wrong today and tell my dad here on earth to give me a puppy. Amen. Lisa went up to her daughter and helped her into bed. I stood at the door and watched them. Dee, in your prayer tonight, you said my dad and not our father. Why did you say that? Because I was talking to my new dad, and he said my old dad was in heaven. So since I prayed to him, I called him Daddy, which is what I called him before he died. I think he likes being called Daddy better than Father. What was it about asking for a puppy? Lisa asked. You always told me to pray for something, and I thought that since my dad was in heaven, he could talk to my dad on earth and I could have a puppy. Last time I asked for a younger brother, and you brought me Derek. So I thought I'd try getting a puppy. I walked up to Dee Dee and kissed her on the cheek. Dad, do you think I can get a puppy? I looked back at Lisa, who shook her head but was smiling at the same time. Honey, let me talk to Mom and we'll see. Good night, and I hope you have sweet dreams. Lisa and I left the room, and Lisa said she didn't know about getting a puppy. Honey, my new daughter asked me for something. Something I can afford to give her. This is the first thing she ever asked me for. Do you really want me to tell her no when she remembers this for the rest of her life? Okay, Mr. Niece Daddy. Tomorrow the four of us will go to the animal shelter and pick out a puppy together. This will be our first major purchase together. You have to promise me that you will help take care of him. Your job will be to clean up after him. I promise to be the head dog cleaner if you promise to make love to me tonight. You've made another good deal. Let's go to bed and start our first love session with her. Our life is going wonderfully. Our parents strongly support us. Linda and Mark are our best friends. Mark doesn't know that Lisa knows about lovemaking instructions. I had to promise to stay away from Linda, which is no problem since I have a woman I love. We received a call from Nina, who got married and is now expecting her first child. After she got married, she stopped taking birth control. My new employee, Jim, is renting my old apartment above the garage. I never have to worry about him being late for work. As for me, I have matured. I married the woman I have always loved and have 2 wonderful children. When you read a story about a happily married man who never cheated on his wife, you are probably reading about me. I miss my brother Dan, but my friend the Wanderer always says, life goes on. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.